Nice. All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's meeting. I'll call the meeting to order at 9:02, I'll say. And is there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Madam Chair, no additions or deletions, and I'm happy to report all present and accounted for.
Perfect, thank you. So we will start with delegation today. We have Maria and Geraldine. We will find out a little bit more about the University of Alberta Community University Partnership. Please.
Amazing. Can you hear me okay if I'm this far from the microphone? That's great. I don't want to be awkward. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak here today. I'm Geraldine Cahill, and I work with Dr. Maria Mayan, to my right, from University of Alberta's Community University Partnership team. And many of you are familiar, especially with Maria, who's been collaborating in Drayton Valley for a few years now. I'm going to do a little bit of administration to make sure I don't talk too far over time. So sorry about that. The community, this is a gaggle of us last year in Edmonton, presenting to the Future Skills folks, which was terrific to have Miller and Mayor Dodds there as well. This research partnership with the university was established back in 2020. It was a collaboration with the town of Drayton Valley and CUP to explore how the Zero Fee Tuition Assistance Program, now I think known as TAB, Tuition Assistance Bursary, may be a mechanism for an inclusive economy. And the results so far have been very positive, both on employment and also for quality of life for participants. And this has provided the capacity for the town of Drayton Valley to assess the goals for zero fee, namely a desire to retain residents in the town and improve quality of life. We did a number of stakeholder interviews along the way, and as a result of that particular kind of research, we were able to identify a particular strategy known as rural wealth creation that we thought would be interesting to explore with the town and formally with the town as well, which is what brings us here today. I work as a consultant with CUP, and I bring many years of work in social innovation and systems thinking, and primarily as a facilitator in multi-stakeholder processes. So it's that work with the research team at U of A that we're joining you with today. Some additional context behind the research, many of which you know. I won't go through all of this slide because it'll take some time, but essentially, you know, across the country, there's been a pattern of downloading costs and responsibilities to municipalities. I'm sure many of you are very aware of this, without much change in capital transfers. That puts a great deal of strain on municipal governments. And single resource towns have been hard hit by this. Yet, as we've seen, considerable innovation is very present. What's energizing about the opportunity to explore rural wealth creation for Drayton Valley is the opportunity to work together across sector and with residents to design and develop some community and economic projects to support the town's goal of economic sustainability. What is rural wealth creation? It basically focuses on creating and sustaining local economies that benefit everyone. Our North Star, our sort of guiding mission, is to strengthen civic engagement and economic sustainability through active contribution to the town. So it's an invitation not just to council, not just to the town formally, but to all residents, business leaders, community organisations, and so on to participate together. When we think about rural wealth and community capital, what we really mean by that is more than just the financial capital that, you know, drives a lot of purchasing and whatnot, but is also about the economic, cultural, and human capital or knowledge and physical assets that we have available to us to design around. And the town of Drayton Valley, like most places, is rich in resources. The key is really in calling together who wants to contribute to mobilizing those resources and exploring what we can achieve together. One of the critical elements in rural wealth creation strategy is the identification of what we call anchor institutions or anchor organizations and keystone individuals. Certainly, the town of Drayton Valley formally is one of those anchor institutions. It means that you're tied to a particular place by mission, by your history, your physical assets, and the local relationships that you have. Other kinds of anchor institutions include foundations like the local community foundation here, the hospital, large businesses, and so on. And then there are keystone individuals as well, and we try and identify those throughout. Many of you would fall in this category also because of the relationships and the social capital that you hold. But other leaders don't necessarily hold formal leadership roles, but they can guide a mission and they can mobilize activity. So we're always on the lookout for those folks as well. They can really spot the potential contributions that others can make. So throughout this process, we've been really paying attention to the kinds of folks that might like to get involved in this. And, you know, that not surprisingly, they sign up for events, they connect you to individuals. I would suggest to you folks like Jessica Doucette, is one of these people who's so ready to connect me and Maria and others in the team to others in the network that want to engage, and so on. So engaging these folks is really critical to the success of any strategy. When it comes to local government, there's a particular role that government can play in these processes, and I think it's important to spend just a little bit of time in these. I know that municipalities are often called on to provide financial support, but we also recognize that you don't have a lot at your disposal. So it's not really about calling on you to participate from a financial perspective, but really as both an employer, an asset holder, the holder of multiple relationships, as a purchaser. You know, if we look at purchasing power as well, local governments provide legitimacy to any project that is underway in a town. There's also, depending on the pathway that the rural wealth creation strategy takes, is the possibility to examine what's possible by way of bylaws or other enabling pathways. Often if you go the way of development, either of housing or other infrastructure, there's certain enabling pathways that a town can provide as well. So those things will become visible over time. So we can't get into the sort of details of them, but it's those kinds of things that we invite you to consider as the strategy rolls out. So really what this is all about behind all of this proposal is kind of the 21st century barn raising idea. You know, this is about not just one person or one organization doing everything, but together mobilizing our capacities and our resources to achieve something together. And this really goes to a solid tradition of community engagement. Specifically, I'll just check my time here. Not too bad. That's good. Oh, take my time. All right. Slow down if I'm going too fast. You tell me. Keep me in check. All right. So in terms of the rural wealth creation strategy, on one side, we have the critical element of engagement with the community and building the relationships to collaborate together. And that series of relationships will determine the pathway for the strategy. And whatever is decided there will determine what model, business model or initiative will be the sort of infrastructure around which we collaborate. And one or more of these could be deployed over time. And I'm going to explore a few of them with you today. There's more than what we'll have time to discuss. But what's terrific about them is that there's lots of examples from across the country in small towns of similar size that have engaged these different models to some success. The first one we'll just talk about is Sangudo, which many of you may be already familiar with. You know, the community came together initially because they wanted to save their high school. That effort was unsuccessful. However, they did decide to establish a cooperative, and they had 28 initial investors and were able to save the meat plant, which was a major employer in the town, but which would also, the loss of which would necessitate them traveling some distance to get their, get their proteins. So they were able to save the plant, and now they employ many people. They've also done various things subsequent to this, converting an historical building, developing housing, and the last update I had was that they were the second largest employer after the county. So, so that's been a terrific success for them. Also on the cooperative front, Westlock Terminals. This is another example of a co-op which had many more investors. I now have down from their website, they have 270 investors in total. And they bought the grain terminal slated for decommission. It was a blend of farmers and business people from the area. They're now the most profitable terminal for their size. And my understanding is they're diversifying into a transport company as well. They provide regular returns to their shareholders. And so this is an opportunity that the community may want to explore. I'm not going to cover all the co-op models. There are worker co-ops as well, the primary difference being that rather than just a share from multiple residents or business people, the workers themselves have ownership and are able to sort of control the way that the cooperative runs. So it's a different kind of model. And then there's also something known as employee stock ownership. PCL is an example of this. Essentially, the reason why we're looking at not just co-ops, but these employee stock ownership and also the following slide is about succession planning, where you see businesses where owners have come to the end of their careers and want to move on, but perhaps their children don't want to inherit the business. Perhaps they're feeling some pressure to sell. And here's some options in actually selling to employees and retaining local wealth in the community. So an employee stock ownership plan is really about an employee benefit plan that enables employees to own part or all of the company. And there's several of these in the United States, but PCL, the shares are held by employees and more than 90% of the salaried staff choose to become shareholders. So we've got legislation here in Canada that exempts the first $10 million in gains from the sale of a business to a qualifying employee ownership trust as well. So that can be very beneficial when you're looking at transition. Just last year, the government passed legislation enabling the creation of employee ownership trusts. It's a new succession option, and this structure allows you to sell the majority of your company to your employees at fair market value. So this is another option, very much in the same sort of same spirit as the last one. We have only one registered employee ownership trust so far, but as I say, that legislation was just created last year. So hopefully we'll see many more enter the water supply. When I talked about the purchasing power of the town, obviously, I was thinking about local procurement models. There's various, the town may be interested in getting involved in there may be histories of you engaging in procurement, social procurement or local procurement. I think, the town has a great opportunity to get engaged in this way. And you could even theoretically pool purchasing with a number of towns also if there's not enough sort of viable proposition to go alone, but where you do want to make some purchases that of some size. So this is another option as well. Community bonds are an interesting model that have been deployed across the country, increasingly in areas of non-market affordable housing. And so this is an interesting one. It's a bit more complicated, but it has been developed over a number of decades now, and organisations like Indwell are making it very commonplace. So it's a financial tool like any other bond, and it enables people to invest in projects that have a positive impact while also earning a financial return. The primary holder of the bond would be necessarily a non-profit entity. So it wouldn't be the town or a business that owned that. It would be managed by a non-profit, and that keeps the development, however that's invested, whether it's housing or other infrastructure, in affordable ownership in perpetuity. So it's essentially its function. And it's regarded as a loan that has to be paid back to investors. There's lots of great examples of community bonds being deployed at the moment. The first example I'll share is obviously from a much bigger jurisdiction, but this was actually one of the first ones that I learned about. 720 Bathurst Street in Toronto was a multiple-story building. It was purchased by the Centre for Social Innovation in a first community bond offering. They raised over $7.5 million from over 400 community investors, and they own and operate 100,000 square feet. Actually was one of the buildings where I had one of my first jobs in Canada before it became the Centre for Social Innovation. What is most energizing to me when we talk about community bonds is not just the enabling of the purchase of the property, but the fact that they had 400 people contribute to it, which gives the community a sense that they're contributing to the success of the organization. It's mobilizing that level of community spirit that makes something like this really special to me. There's also cases in other jurisdictions, Kamloops, Wellington, lots of stories of a growing number of stories around community bond offerings. This was last year in Kamloops. That's actually, the top picture is of a restaurant that they purchased, an old restaurant, and they're going to be creating a mixed-use building, commercial space on the ground floor and apartments above, affordable housing units. They're expecting to offer investors a 3.5% return on their investment. And then Habitat for Humanity in Guelph, Wellington in southwestern Ontario also started a couple of projects, and they're hoping to raise about $4.5 million as well. This is enough to get in the door at the CMHC to become eligible for a mortgage to get going on creating affordable housing. So these things are really interesting to explore. They're not, as I say, they're complex, but they're doable. And there's lots of folks that we have access to that can advise on a process like this. One of the last things I'll talk about in terms of models are community land trusts, and often the community bonds are tied to a community land trust as well. They don't have to be. But community land trusts feature, permanent land stewardship. Community land trusts never sell their land, protecting it from the speculative real estate market. So once again, guaranteeing that perpetuity in affordability. So whether you build housing or something else, that's really key to its development. And I was just thinking before this meeting, municipalities can participate in land trust establishment through things like long-term leasing of land, potentially partnerships in mixed-use developments, as I said earlier, bylaw and other regulatory instruments as well. Some jurisdictions that are building affordable housing have done things like development waivers and things like that that are at your disposal, which I'm sure you all know about as well. So this is just going over what I talked about. You can have cultural spaces, community spaces, commercial spaces, also could be used for agricultural and sort of gardening development, small-scale farming, that sort of thing. So, oopsie, there I am at my time. That's not too bad. So this is kind of cool. This is a quote from a guy that started out over in Nova Scotia, New Dawn Enterprises, not Nova Scotia, Cape Breton, thank you, Maria. Community wealth building, which is another term for rural wealth creation, is about ensuring the whole community has the resources, tools, and infrastructure to thrive. That's certainly what we're aiming for with this strategy. From now, and what we've been doing since December is really socializing these concepts with a number of groups. We have another couple of information sessions next week as well, one with Rotary House, with Community Learning and the Multicultural Association, as well as whoever else wants to come to Rotary House. And also that evening at Nodding Donkey. If you're not tired of hearing this, you're welcome to join us there as well, although there's really no need because I will be saying the same things. But if you have follow-up questions, then we're hoping to also work with the new Business Support Network on offering learning events alongside the strategic development of ideas to learn how to create a co-op or community land trust. These would be offerings regardless of which model is chosen by the community, and I think, beneficial for anyone to learn about along the way. On May the 5th, there's going to be a design workshop. It's the first workshop that we'll hold with whoever wants to participate. You are all very welcome to be there. I'll be joined along with Paul Sabai from Demos Partners, who was at the December 11th information session. He has considerably more experience than I in co-op development and community-led economic development strategies. So he'll be there as an expert, sort of subject matter expert. And that'll be a terrific opportunity for town stakeholders to get going on some asset mapping and some priority focus for this work. And what we're hoping to do is then come away as the research team and develop a set of sort of profile cases that we can, on what could be possible. Over the summer, sort of socializing those with various community groups again and yourselves to get feedback, and hope to host a kind of town hall style event in the fall where the community will decide ultimately which one they'd like to try first. So that's kind of the pathway. Along the way, we'd like to also host a rural wealth study tour with other towns that have engaged in some of these models to learn about what they've done. But I think also critically, and you'll hear this from me a lot, to develop that shared sort of the relationships again, to build the relationships, to strengthen those ties with each other. and, begin a process of sort of collaborating in that way, because you never know what can happen. So that's the plan. And once again, Maria and I are super grateful to have this opportunity to speak with you. Thanks to Pat and Monica for making it happen. And we're happy to answer any questions as well.
Thank you so much. Ever since I first heard your presentation at the HCC meeting, I really liked the idea and the whole thing, and I wanted to bring it here, and I'm looking forward to the May conference in BAP that we're going, hoping to learn a little bit more. So is there any questions from council or administration? Go ahead.
Good morning. Thanks for the presentation. Couple of things. One, I've spoken with some folks that have seen your presentation, and they're kind of like, "This is a pretty cool thing." And so I can see there's some people in the municipality that are looking for things to do. So I think this is a good avenue for them to take, just in the absence of having the personal wealth, right? So to make it happen. Couple questions though. One, community bonds. Curious about those. How are they administered? Like, is it through a banking institution of some sort, or is it through sort of a municipality? I don't know.
Yeah, no, good question. So there would be intermediary support provided by, there's a group out in Toronto that has been doing a number of these offerings, Tapestry Capital. And I would be turning to them for engagement to help us navigate between the bank and the new nonprofit that would need to be formed to enable that to happen. So I apologize that I don't have all the details for how that could go, but that's my understanding, that there needs to be a financial manager essentially deployed with the bond offering, and then it's managed under that nonprofit entity.
Okay, perfect. And then community land trust. I'm a realtor, so when I look at the town, maybe we don't have a whole lot of liquid cash, but we are land rich. We have lots of it. So I'm curious, and we don't have to talk about it now too in depth, but we do have a lot of land. I mean, I wonder if there's something the municipality should be doing in terms of a land trust sort of a scenario. So
I'm 100% enthusiastic for that exploration. And I know, like, I have heard that from folks too, and many of you. And so, as I keep saying, as we say to others that we present to, we're not here to determine the pathway, but I think there's a lot of potential for something like that. Yeah, and that would also enable other kinds of offerings as well, because the land is sort of step one, and then you can see where it might go after that.
Great. Yeah, go ahead, Amila.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, this is very exciting. When I saw the first presentation as well, it's great to have a new, I guess, vision for a community. Just wondering about, who's leading this, right? Who's going to take this bull by the horn and then try to run with it, right? So I'm assuming it's partially the municipality and partially the community, but what have you seen from other communities, how this pan out?
Yeah, good question. So what we'd be hoping to do, and really the reason behind that slide on the Keystone individuals a little bit is we hope over the next short while to identify enough energy from enough individuals to establish like a stewardship group that would be a makeup, a multi-sector makeup of individuals that want to help guide the process forward. So they would be more readily available than the one-off meetings and workshops that happen over the course of the year or whatnot. So I know the university is at the table for some time. We have runway for a couple of years at least, and just leaning on Maria a little bit there, right? And I'm here. But I also know anecdotally that there's interest in some parts of this town, like on speaking of the Healthy Communities Coalition and so on, individuals there that are keen to continue to participate long-term. That's as late as a call I had yesterday with Jessica. So I know that there'll be longer-term interest from a number of individuals. It's about how we can form a stewardship group. It's just been a bit early as we've been in information sharing mode, but we hope to identify that sort of committee or call a kind of committee together after the workshop.
Thank you.
Excellent. Anyone else? Nancy? Go.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation. I love it. It's fantastic. I do have some questions. You've answered most of them. So you talked about getting involved and going out and meeting with groups and that. Are you going to be presenting to Brazeau County?
No, it's great. So a number of the Brazeau County folks were at the December 11th session, including the Reeve. Yeah. So, and I was in touch with them ahead of this presentation, and to be sure that they knew about the May workshop. And I was told by their the administrator there that they were just speaking about it in their council meeting this week or last week, whenever it happened. So I would be anticipating a response from them pretty soon.
Perfect. Yeah, that's wonderful.
So they're certainly engaged. Yeah.
Yeah, good. And then what about Brazeau Senior Foundation as well, when we talk about housing?
Yeah, good one,
Yeah.
Mayor. Good one. we haven't spoken to them yet, but that's a good idea.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because they have a plan, right? So I'm trying to think
Yeah.
of like projects when you were kind of going through the list and things like that, that they would be a good,
Yeah.
somebody good to have at the table for sure, even, maybe in that stewardship group as well, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Next question, you showed us lots of examples of municipalities. Do you think that because we're a smaller community, we're not like a big city, does this impact our success, say like for a community bond or something larger, to get the buy-in from the investors?
I would like to say it won't, but I don't know for sure. We won't know until until there's a decision on the form that it takes, what financial capital will be called. So there's assumptions we can make about some members in the community. I mean, if you look at Sangudo, that's a town much smaller than Drayton.
And us, yeah.
And they were able to mobilize not just the co-op, but the capital to sort of set that ball rolling. Models require different levels of financial participation. So we'll see how it goes. But I think there are enough examples of small towns doing it to suggest that Drayton Valley will be no different.
That people would
That
buy
people will
in to
come.
say this
Yeah.
has been successful, like you said, in smaller communities.
Yeah, and it's all down to that sort of relationship engagement and the trust that if we're able to develop the trust as a group, that people and the business knowledge, obviously, to set up a proposition that they feel comfortable investing in. So I think, yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, and there's plenty of examples too that to display to the community that these are,
Viable.
examples of success and viable, right, elsewhere. Another question, so I know that there's other workshops coming up and you've got a pathway forward, which is great. It's just not presenting today and saying that's it. So how do we as a community, I guess, decide or determine the co-op project? And I guess I ask that because as the town and as leaders, we want to be involved, but we don't want to be getting in the way. So how do we, because I mean, I have ideas myself, but how do you make sure that everyone has their say when you're picking that?
Yeah, 100%. So, yeah, like the May 5 workshop is really the first opportunity to go deep on what priorities people have to bring to the strategy. So we won't just be doing asset mapping. There'll be a deeper discussion on what priorities people have, whether they're issue-based priorities or whether they're infrastructure-based priorities, and there'll be different opinions. I will not be facilitating alone, where we also have some colleagues that will be helping facilitate the process of engaging as many people as possible in bringing their ideas to the table. And then when I articulated the plan to then take what's offered and create a series of cases or profiles, what I mean by that is to say, these are all the ideas. These are the models that could suit those ideas, and then shop them around like for several months. Like, I don't want to rush the process so that people have a chance to weigh in, and you get, sort of the law of the energy of different people participating along the way and saying, well, I think this and I think that. And then coming back together to make that decision as a community. So it's sort of both holding that tension, realizing that not everything will be possible all at once, but hopefully creating enough positive energy and a first go so that the next project is also possible, and so on. That this is not just going to be one thing, hopefully, that gets made, that there's others that follow it. So, if your idea doesn't get up right away, maybe the next time. And or the other thing is, what I'm hoping, if this is not taking too much time, with the Business Support Network, that you develop the knowledge and capacity of other community members such that they might go off and do one on their own. Like, there's no reason why this has to be the only place where stuff happens, So we definitely want the council at the table and, all of your ideas at the table, and they'll go in the hopper. But some people might be like, well, we're going to do this, and that's super duper, you go off and do that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the events that are coming up, there's one next week at the Nodding Donkey. Who should be attending? Like, how are we getting the word out? Is it business? Is it residents? Is it stakeholders, developers, builders?
Yeah, we've taken a pretty egalitarian approach to that particular invitation, but my hope really was to attract business leaders to that session. We've done a number of the Healthy Communities Coalition. We're doing another session with Community Learning and the Multicultural Association. So we're sort of covering off community groups, but we'd really like businesses to come to that session. And so both through Nodding Donkey, through Facebook, and through the Eventbrite invitation sharing, we're hoping to capture, as well as individual invitations. Our colleague Melody has been shooting it off to as many business leaders as she can as well. She's much more connected than me. I've lived here for a couple of years now, but she's busy sharing it out there as well. So hoping to attract a lot that way. Yeah.
Perfect. And then my last question was around local procurement. So we have a bylaw when it comes to our purchasing, right? So how are we able to, I guess, adjust this, that it fits within our bylaw and our MGA and our buying powers, but also support local? Like, how do we get the local on board to say, we still have to fall into this percentage, right? To shop and buy local. So how is it getting, I guess, those businesses to buy into that local procurement as well as us?
Yeah, the procurement, this is pretty, unfortunately, it's a little gray for me, what would be required bylaw wise.
Yeah.
But I think when I talked about, pooling the purchasing is, what I was hoping. So we'd have to become a bit more familiar with what your restrictions may be, the borders of that. So, but we could work on that we could work on that together to see what's possible. And that would be part of the decision-making process. If there is something that comes up that just feels like it would be awesome, but there are so many barriers in the way, that may not be the first project we do, but could be worked on over time, because you want to sort of hit the ground running. I'm not meaning to stop procurement, that local procurement from happening, but more yeah, just see what's possible, and it would go into the consideration of the final choice. How difficult is it? How possible is it to move on it now versus, 6 months from now or whatever? So, yeah.
Yeah, and some of these things could be running parallel, like the local procurement. We
Yeah.
could be, because we have the bylaw running as we're doing,
Yeah,
or you're doing all of this as well.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And then what is the or what is the time and location for the May 5th, just so I can have Ms. Thompson save the date in our calendars?
Indeed, May 5th, at the CTC, from 5 till 8 PM.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
that's the date.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much, ladies.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Oh, is there a question? Oh, Pat has questions? Go ahead.
I've been biting my tongue, so it might take just 5 minutes or so. So first of all, thanks very much for the presentation. It couldn't have come at a better time because we have the Economic Development Committee meeting immediately following
Oh.
today's Governance and Priorities Committee, and some of the subject matter I think we'll be covering during the Economic Development Committee meeting. I want to say, I don't know if it's karma, if it's, the stars are aligning, if it's destiny or whatever else. But I can assure you, the town of Drayton Valley has both feet in the pool on this, and we are fully invested both in the concept and the philosophy of rural wealth creation. Mayor Nancy just spoke about local procurement, and not to undermine what you said, it's actually in policy, not in bylaw, but we have been sensitized to the fact that the town has not focused enough on local procurement. Of course, we're always the mandate, save the taxpayers' dollars, spend taxpayers' dollars, but there is a trade-off, I know, and there is some conditions in that policy that give the CEO the flexibility to purchase, as long as it's within a reasonable amount of whatever you can procure. The other thing we've done is that we're members of a large procurement collective called Canoe, which is operated by the Rural Municipalities Association of Alberta, that because of the huge purchasing power, the incredible savings, and I'll give you a good example. We talked to local stationery stores about, supplying paper. Well, when we get it 50% cheaper through this mass, purchase, it becomes very difficult for local, merchants to be able to provide. So we are sensitive, we're moving in that direction. The other thing that we learned recently is in terms of procurement of vehicles and helping our local, and as the mayor said, how do local businesses become aware of this? Well, some of it has to be on their initiative, but also some education for them. And so we've, purchased a vehicle recently for one of the local dealerships. We've got arrangements for others in the future because now they understand the process. So very happy with that. Community bonds is interesting when we talked about it, because actually we have a group, the Drayton Valley Community Foundation, who's actually doing the financing on Opportunity House. So there is community bonds actually in effect in our community at the present time. And there's lots of other opportunities as well. The other vehicle that I've used that's been very successful is REIT, R-E-I-T, the Real Estate Investment Trust. We use that very successfully in Parkland County and with basically commercial industrial development. We talked about housing, and I need to understand, I hear terms and I'm never quite certain. We use the word affordable housing, and we use the term market affordable. And can you tell me the definitions and the differentiation between the two?
Sure. So the definitions, as I've come to understand them through an engagement that I did over the last couple of years, looking at the CMHC's definition of affordable is 80% of market rate. So the difference being that being the qualifying difference for affordability. So that's the difference there. And as I explained at the HCC meeting too, when it comes to the development of housing, obviously it's an expensive proposition, and we look at the housing spectrum, and affordable housing with that 80% sort of topper enables real estate development to hopefully also, it enables the developer to get a return as well. When it comes to deeply affordable or social housing, that is a different proposition, and there may be work happening with other partners on that score, but it would not be necessarily what we'd be talking about in the rural wealth creation strategy. It's sort of a role for other levels of government to participate alongside any other development when it comes to that supportive housing, because you need professional healthcare supports in that instance as well. So it makes it a different cost, set of costs.
Great. I understand from the development community, the return that they're looking at is 15%. So we're using that sort of as a guideline or the benchmark. We talked about community land trust, and this is fascinating because administration will be bringing forward to the May Economic Development Committee the complete list of all the lands. Council's asked and been waiting for this for 3 or 4 years now, and we finally are near the end of that particular process of having a complete binder put together of all the property the town owns, the sizes, location, assessment, etc. So you talked about some interesting concepts: long-term leasing, partnerships, development waivers, etc. The town's actually involved in 2 different projects at the present time where partnerships and the land, as Councillor Clark said, we're land rich and cash poor, but we're going to be using that as leverage in terms of addressing affordable or market affordable housing in the very near future. So it's a very, very exciting project. Something you just mentioned, and we share with you, we're having an event called Dirt to Door with our development community. So it's from landowners who own the dirt to the people who purchase the property, do the rezoning subdivision and development, to the people who are the house builders, the subcontractors, and anybody else in the community. And that's happening on April 25th. It's a breakfast meeting. And the reason we're doing that is so people could come and then get on with their business day. So go from 6:38 a.m. to 8 a.m. with a breakfast. So we see that as all part of the whole philosophy and the concept of community wealth building. You know, to speak with people, how can we reduce timeframes for approvals, cut red tape? That all contributes to it. And I just wanted, the last thing I may, thank you, Madam Chair, the ultimate success in taking or achieving the regional wealth creation will only be in the regional context. We are not competing against other towns, we're competing against other regions, and it's not only nationally, it's on a global basis. Hence such things as the Edmonton Metropolitan Region Board, Calgary Metropolitan Region Board, because there is a recognition that in order to compete in today's world, you have to collaborate, cooperate, and you have to do it on a regional basis. And I'm happy to say that we have the environment here in Drayton Valley, Brazeau County area to realize that particular success. So thanks very much for the opportunity, Madam Chair.
Excellent, thank you. Excellent questions, and thank you for all the answers. Did you have one more
Oh,
question?
no.
Oh, no? Okay.
Just excited.
Oh, yeah. I was excited when I first heard it too. I couldn't wait for you guys to come and present to the rest of us. Thank you very much. We'll be in touch.
Yes,
Have a
thanks so
wonderful day.
much.
Did we want to take a break before we move on? Yes? Oh, okay. All right. I'll call a 10-minute break at 9:50 and we'll be back at 10 o'clock. Survey. And I'll let Cody. his
Good
thing.
morning. Thank you. So as part of the administration's continuous review of municipal bylaws, to make sure they're for good governance and it meets the needs of the community, Protective Services has begun to review our bylaws in the community as it pertains to traffic safety. So currently at this time, there's 6 bylaws that regulate traffic safety within the community. They include the heavy vehicle bylaw, off-highway vehicle bylaw, school zone bylaw, traffic bylaw, amending traffic bylaw, and transportation and dangerous goods bylaw. And they were all enacted between 2014 to 2020. So from February 10th till March 3rd of this year, it was a 3-week period, the town hosted a survey to the public to solicit feedback from the community on their thoughts of the current traffic bylaws and questions pertaining to items that are or could be related under our municipal traffic bylaws. So over the 3-week period, we received 615 responses, making this survey one of the most successful surveys conducted pertaining to bylaws within Drayton Valley. In addition to the 8 multiple choice questions, there was 1 question with an open text field where respondents could put in any open text that they would like. Of the 615 responses, 231 open text responses were received. Attached to this report are the results of the multiple choice questions as well as the open text responses. So after completing the survey, administration is moving forward with developing a new traffic safety bylaw, which will be presented to council at a later date. However, in preparation of the bylaw creation, feedback from council is requested. So after we review the survey results, administration will be able and get feedback from council. Administration will prepare a bylaw that hopefully meets the needs of council and desires of the community to make sure that the bylaw is streamed, effective, and able to meet all the needs effectively. So from the open text comments, there are a number of kind of themes that emerged out of there. Some of them were related to the actual traffic bylaw. Some of them were unrelated altogether. But the themes that were unrelated had to do with the number of traffic violations in the community, mainly speeding, the road conditions throughout the community, so potholes, line painting, etc. Changes to 43rd Avenue and 43rd Street intersection near Powerhouse Campus, the enforcement levels of too much or too little, timing of controlled lights, dealing with theft, crime, and disorder in the community, speeding on Highway 22 surrounding the speed limit on Highway 22 surrounding the town, and the new digital speed display signs. However, as they do pertain to the actual bylaw, the items of the themes that did come out of that were changes to snow removal, so signage enforcement or no enforcement, more time requested, the playground zones near the Omniplex, or playground zone, sorry, some want it removed, some want more speed control measures in place, and then engine brake concerns throughout the community. So from the questions that we asked, kind of high level, they were pertaining to trailers, schools and playground zones, snow removal parking, speed limit, and truck routes. So we'll go in very short order, we'll go through these questions. I'd like to take the opportunity to kind of go through the question, have council ask any questions they have, and then if we can kind of get a bit of a consensus so that administration is aware of what direction we want to move forward with these questions. In addition to that, once we get through the questions, if administration does, or sorry, if council has any questions for administration pertaining to this survey, more than happy to answer those. So when it comes to stakeholder and communication strategy, once we get the feedback from council, we will be developing a bylaw further for that to bring it forward for first reading. If first reading passes, then at that point, we'll develop an actual communication strategy to take forward to the community at that time. So once we're completed this presentation, we'd be looking for a motion that council accepts the traffic bylaw survey results as information. So if we were to go back into the actual questions that we're seeking some feedback on. So the first one is pertaining to trailers. So in Drayton Valley, trailers are permitted to be parked on the roadway for 72 hours if they're attached to a vehicle. And then they are required to be moved to an off-site location for a 48-hour period. So whether that's your driveway, storage yard, campground, whatever, and then that 72 hours kind of reconvenes. So when we asked that question to the respondents on which statement would you most likely support, we had 421 out of 615 responses say keep the same regulation. And we had 194 out of 615 respondents say remove the requirement to be moved off the road for 48 hours and remain with the 72-hour requirement. So I know where I'd like to go with that one, which is the majority, which is keep it the same. But again, wanting to kind of get feedback from council on their thoughts on that one.
Morning. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, I didn't, I thought it was Pat that said something, I'm like, the microphone's not on. Go ahead, Amila, sorry.
Thank you. Morning. Just wondering about the current bylaw we have and the current status of this. What is the rationale behind 72 hours and then 40 hours, how we've written it right now?
Yeah, so that's what's currently is you're allowed to be attached on the road for 72 hours and then you got to move for the 48.
Right.
That's under a traffic bylaw. I wasn't around when that was brought in, so I don't know the full rationale.
Right.
I'd assume it has to do with just making sure people aren't just parking on the road for 72 hours. They move it 5 feet, sit there for another 72. It's getting it out of the neighborhood for the weekend or whatever may be. But that's an assumption I'm making at this point, so.
Madam Chair, through the Chair, Councilor Camana, this seems to be the standard in most municipalities. All the municipalities I've worked, they have a similar traffic bylaw, and it's 72 hours. Otherwise, it's considered storage on a public roadway. So I think is probably the guideline that the town adopted a number of years ago.
Thank you.
All right, yeah, go ahead, Rick.
So it's 72 hours, take it off for 48, and then you can park it back there again.
And then,
And then 48, 72. Are you running into a lot of people who are kind of shuffling back and forth like that? I think that's got to take up a lot of time to keep track of.
yeah, there's a handful of places, not many, that we have this challenge with. And it's one of those things where if we get rid of the 48 hours, then again, we're just dealing with that 72, and technically they move it a foot, that 72 restarts. So it's actually a little bit harder with just the 72 hours to actually prove it, because then you're going back every 72 hours, they moved it a foot. Okay, well, they're not in violation. The neighbors call on again, where if there is that 48-hour window, it's gone from the neighborhood, we're good. Close the file. If they come back again, then that's further discussion we have at that point. And it's more of that education piece at that point on, did you know? I think we've only got one that once you know, they continue to do that. So it is a little bit of chasing on that one particular one. But for the most part, once people understand they've got to move it off for 48 hours, again, whether that's your driveway, storage yard, whatever, it just can't be on the road. They've been pretty good at responding to that, so.
Seems like it makes sense to have the 48 hours just so it's physically taken away from that particular spot,
Yeah.
to me anyway.
For your smaller trailers where it's 5 feet, it's not much of an issue, but when you've got a 30, 40-foot camper trailer that's parked on the road for months at a time, moving a foot here and there, neighborhoods don't like
that's
it,
what
so.
we're trying to address here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you've got, 30, 40 feet of trailer, you're probably parking in front of two houses or taking up a significant portion of the road. Okay, thanks. I'd be in support of the 48 hours.
Madam Chair, might add, the three reasons that I've most often heard people complain about this particular issue is one, safety. The width of the trailers or the RVs that are parked on the street is about 50% wider than a normal vehicle. So they take up more space on the street. And so vehicles passing at that particular point, are inconvenience and it becomes a safety issue. Second one, as Councillor Evans would just point out, the length of the trailers take up 2 or 3 parking spaces along a street. So it restricts the amount of parking. And so if you've got friends coming over to your place, it makes it less convenient for them. And the third one is just plain annoyance. People are annoyed by the fact there's trailers being parked or RVs being parked on the street. So that's the rationale for having those particular restrictions.
Okay, Colin, did you have a question?
I'm good with A.
Me too.
Okay. Thank you. So moving on to the next one is surrounding playground zones and school zones. So currently in Drayton Valley, we have both school zones and playground zones. Playground zones run off of the provincial timelines, which is starting at 8:30 a.m. and go until 1 hour after sunset. And then our school zones start at 8 a.m. and go till 4:30 p.m. on school days. So the question that was put to the respondents is, which statement would you most likely support? And one was, we had 516 out of 615 responses say keep school zones and playground zones separate and have the different times depending on the zone. And then we had 99 out of 615 responses say to remove the school zones and designate school zones as playground zones and amend the playground zones to times such as 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week. So again, going with the majority, I'd be interested in kind of continuing with the two separate, but again, seeking feedback from council on their thoughts on that one.
Anyone?
I'm good with A.
Great, agreed. Yep.
Thank you.
Alright.
Just on that one as well, just about school zones, if we are bringing it into a bylaw, again, currently it is at 8 a.m. start. Would there be interested in moving it to a 7:30 start? Just understanding some schools are kind of getting in place at that 8:05, 8:10 mark. Or do we want to keep it at that 8 start?
Would that mean changing all the signs? I'm okay with staying.
There's a lot of changes that need to be put in place to have them proper anyways. So there's going to be a handful of changes. So if it's getting changed anyways, do we want to do it? If there's no changes to those signs needed, I guess, do we leave it?
Amila?
Just leave it, in my mind.
Leave it.
That's what I'm thinking too, but Rick?
Yeah, I think I would leave it too, even if you have somebody coming in there a little earlier than 8 o'clock. I don't know if they really pay attention to the exact time. They know they're coming into a school zone at that point in time, and I think they'll respect the
Stay with the 8.
requirement. I know that could be maybe a bit of an issue if you happen to write a ticket at 7:55 and somebody could fight that, maybe saying, oh, it's not a school zone until 8, but I think those issues will be few and far between, I would think.
Okay, nope, sounds good, thank you. Moving on to the next question was about snow removal parking. So currently signs are required to be placed out 12 hours in advance of snow removal, and any vehicles remaining after the 12-hour window are subject to ticketing and or towing. So the question was posed on which statement would you most likely support. So for 12 hours in advance, we had 152 out of 615 respondents. At least 16 hours in advance, we had 57 out of 615. At least 24 hours in advance, we had 338 out of 615, and 48 hours in advance, we had 68 out of 615. So I know from municipal operations standpoint, the 24 hours does pose some challenges. If we go with kind of what's normal in other municipalities, they are operating off that 24-hour window. From our standpoint on the enforcement side, we get a lot of pushback on people just didn't know. They get home, signs are up at 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They're getting home at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, whatever, and they didn't look out the window, they didn't see the sign. So we get a lot of pushback with the 12 hours, but I also am cognizant of the operational changes that are gonna, a 24 could impact with municipal operations if that's the direction we went, or again, the 16 or 48. So looking for council's feedback and insights on that one.
Perhaps, Madam Chair, I'd ask my Director of Municipal Operations on what impacts.
I was going to, I just wanted to see if council has any comments first.
Thank you for the question. I think the biggest impact is just the amount of signs we currently have. And meeting our thresholds within our priorities, it can become challenging. So a big thing is if we put them out and then we don't get it done, and then we take them down, we get kind of beat up over that as well. So there's definitely challenges with it. However, I can understand the viewpoint on the public as to why 24 hours is more ideal.
I can see, can't make everybody happy, but I personally agree with the 24 hours. Amila?
Oh.
Do you have?
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to say the same, that, it would be nice to give a little bit more notice to the residents. But also I was thinking, can we be a little bit more specific on the timeline that we're going to actually do the work there, right? On the sign itself, there's no way right now to say that it's going to be from 2 to 5 or something like that, just to be clear. But is that a possibility? I think I've asked this question about 4 years ago as well. So just bringing that question back.
Oh,
I'll jump in.
Sorry.
I think I'm going to speak a little bit. It's always possible.
yes.
But I'd suggest it'd be very challenging for municipal operations to kind of properly do that, understanding vehicles break down, equipment breaks down, all of a sudden if you had to be just that 2 to 5 window and we're not gonna make it kind of thing. Currently the signs state clear as day, you just can't be there from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. So it's clear as day on that day from 7 till 7, you can't be there. And then if we do face any kind of equipment issues or something like that, that's fine. They've got some time. Hopefully they can do a quick repair and continue moving, possibly get on some contractors and help out, whatever. So it gives them a little bit of that wiggle room on municipal operations side to kind of continue operations in that aspect if possible. Yeah.
We have identified issues with the signs. So we will be looking at what options we have on changing out, making them a bit more visible, being able to actually slide in a day, whether or not it's gonna be a Thursday snow removal, a Friday snow removal, kind of pin that down. But yeah, time, it all depends on, there's a lot of variables, even the accumulation of snow, how big the windrow is, how quickly we're moving. It all depends. It's pretty hard to put a specific timeline on when that street's gonna get completed.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. I was just thinking from the community members' perspective, 7 to 7 is a longer period for, if you're a mom that trying to bring your kid to a house and carrying and all that. So having to walk a whole 12 hours is a problem, right? So that's why I was trying to find a compromise there.
So we did identify that 7:30 is a bit too early to start your residential areas because most people are leaving for work right around that 8 o'clock timeframe. So when we did our postseason meeting, we did identify that as an issue as we may need to start at 8 a.m. instead of 7:30, just to allow for people to get out of the way.
So yeah, there's some operational things that we're kind of looking at on kind of trying to streamline some of that stuff as well, kind of that back end kind of stuff. But yeah, and I think it's one of those things where it's that continuous review and improvement and how do we do better kind of thing, right? And how do we meet the needs of the residents? How do we meet the needs of council? And I think even my 3 years here, I think it's getting a lot better even in the last 3 years kind of thing, right? Yeah. So now how do we start trying to fine tune some of that a little bit better? And how do we make it so more of the vehicles are off the road so that when the grader turns down the road, it's nice and clear. And they don't need a bunch of involvement from enforcement. It's just people want to voluntarily, for the most part, follow the rules. But if they don't know they weren't supposed to park there because they got home 2 hours earlier than the signs were out kind of thing, it's hard for them to proactively comply kind of thing, right? So me personally, I'd be in favor of that 24-hour, but again, it's trying to seek that feedback on kind of where council would like to go, and that's what we'll write in the bylaw kind of thing. But then we'll operate under that. So.
Any opinions on this?
24 hours, good. good with me. I agree having to try and throw a window of a few hours in there for people is, well, that's pretty tough. Just trying to work each road into that window that you have, that 12-hour window, is tricky enough with stuff that happens as you're moving along there, I think. But yeah, I'd like 24 hours.
Me too.
I missed one when it was 16 hours, and one of my neighbors got on Facebook and let us know we were the only vehicle on the block there that hadn't been moved. I did get it moved before you came through, though.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. So 24-hour notice, does that mean that resident can't park in front of the house for 24 hours?
No, that would just be that the signs are being put up 24 hours in advance.
Right.
And again, tying it into kind of the discussion there on kind of some changes to signage kind of thing, right? So if we have some tabs that it's no parking from 7 till 7 on Thursday, right? And it's clear as day. So if they're getting put up on a Tuesday evening, for example, it's not, okay, all Wednesday they can't be there, nothing was done, they're getting all grumpy. And then Thursday, they're already grumpy because they had to park a couple blocks away. Now we're showing up, right? So part of that would be kind of making sure that we have those proper signage and tabs in place. And then following as well, like keeping in mind, we do a lot of advertisement on our social media and stuff like that. So again, not everyone follows the social media and stuff like that, but they put out the mappings that have the different areas on the different days. So that helps as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
So moving on to the speed limit. So this one has been a couple discussions with council, and I personally like having this one in there because I think this is a very contentious question, and I think that's why we got a lot of responses on our survey. So they wanted to answer this one in particular, but we got a lot of other responses part of it. So through that, the question related to currently the speed limits within the community in are 50 kilometers per hour unless otherwise posted. So the question was, what statement would you most likely support? So it was leaving the speed limit on residential roadways at 50 kilometers per hour, and that was 462 out of 615 respondents. And then the second option was reducing the speed limit on residential roadways to 40 kilometers per hour, and we got 153 out of 615. So from my standpoint, I know all the back end research and reasons on why from a safety standpoint, but again, looking at this, it's clear math isn't the greatest, but probably a 75–80% of respondents were let's leave it the same. So again, seeking direction from council, but I'd be moving in that option A as well.
Anyone else? Yep,
Leave it.
leave it.
Don't touch it.
Yep, I agree. Yep. All right.
Thank you. And then Nancy with those maps. So then the last question was pertaining to the truck route. So the truck route that's up on the screen right now is the current truck route. And then so we put a question to the respondents on what would you most likely support? So either leave it as it currently stands, or an option 2, which is, again, there's still variations that we could do to it, but an possible draft is if we could look at the other one. So starting to, oops, was that me? So starting to remove some of the heavy vehicle traffic in the downtown core along 50th Ave and 50 Street areas, and kind of keep them out in the industrial areas, still getting them up to some of the business residential down here. With that caveat in mind, if you're doing a delivery or something like that, in these areas, you can still do your delivery. It's just not your normal day-to-day. I'm not driving through Drayton Valley with my big D8 Cat or whatever the case may be, right? Thankfully, to my knowledge, in my 3 years, we've only had one semi that was hauling something that hit our lights there. So it's not super common that we've got too high loads in those kind of areas. But again, it's the weight of the commercial vehicles if they're consistently in those areas. However, keeping in mind as well the impacts that it could have to local businesses if your commercial vehicles wanted to come into town to stop, have food, go to different restaurants, hotels, different things like that. We do have a number of hotels in this area as well, right? So I get the drawbacks from the community as well, but So from the respondents, to leave the truck route as it currently stands, we had 416 out of 615. Or possible as an option 2, we had 194 out of 615. So seeking feedback from council on their thoughts on the truck route.
Anyone?
Sure, I'll take a crack at it. Yeah, I would like to save the wear and tear on on 50th and 50th. I think that all contributes to how torn up, especially that one inside corner, gets. You know, when you've got heavy traffic, trying to get around that tight corner, it is tight. We got a lot of turning lanes smacked in that intersection. However, having said that, yeah, I think the detrimental effect on businesses that those truck drivers may be using is probably why, I guess, the numbers are how they are, along with the convenience, I guess, for a truck driver to just be able to cover most of the town on a truck route. Yeah, that's a tough one. I guess I'd have to go with the 416 respondents maybe and stick with the existing truck route. I'm assuming there's a reason why they.
Part of it too, like, again, keeping in mind the other option is just a draft. There could be other variations. So again, this is the current one. Is it something where just totally leave it as is, or maybe we're taking off this 50th Ave over here in this area, and again, keeping them kind of on the highway and 494 area. So at least we're saving some of our payment in that, because there's not really businesses down here per se, right? So again, do they need that thoroughfare? I'm not a truck driver, but I don't think so. But I could be wrong, right? So is there a variation from kind of the draft that was proposed? And maybe we're keeping the majority of this kind of downtown stuff, but we're removing possibly maybe this 50th Ave area.
I'm going to go to Nancy and then Colin and then Amila.
So the respondents to the survey, do we know who the respondents are? Are they businesses? Are they
Sure.
truckers? Are they just residents? I guess the reason I'm asking is it's 416 out of 615, right? So I'm wondering, are these 416 people using this truck route, or are they just saying, leave it, right? So I would kind of be with Rick here that it's difficult. I do question, like, yeah, the 50th and well, both 50ths, like, you think when you're coming around 58th and going down.
Yeah, I agree. 50th.
Yeah, like, I'm just trying to, we kind of have the roundabout, right? So I know there are a few businesses on the ring road there that next to the water treatment plant, right?
Yeah.
And
And
then we
again,
have
if
a
they're,
few
if
that
they're
are,
normally
or-
going there, they're still allowed to.
yeah, if they're normally, they're allowed. So otherwise, yeah, I don't know, right? I mean, I think that change it, if you could change it and see if there's an uproar, if there's an impact, because I just wonder who the 416 are. I just don't know if I think 416 people that are using this truck route responded. Right? So that's my only question. I just don't, yeah, I can't see 416 truckers that responded to this survey. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm just trying to get,
I would assume
a portion. Yeah. There's a lot of truck, and I mean, I've always questioned too, because you have your schools always there, like, when we even used to have El Dorado, and you've got big trucks turning, how many times did they take out that corner there, like, or I've seen trucks hung up actually on the light and on the curb there, and I think, why didn't they go around, or, in the school, so. Yeah, and we just paved it, yes, so maybe doing like 50th to the east and 50th to the south, taking that off and seeing how it sits for a while. Or some, you know what I mean? Like,
Sorry.
yeah, just because there's not a lot of businesses, and I think businesses that are using that can go around, so. Just my thoughts.
Colin?
Yeah, can you bring up the other map, please? The like this one here, I'm in favor of, except the only thing I would add is just where the water treatment plant is, that 70, Range Road 70, what is that, 75? 73. I would just add that strip there. Otherwise, I think this is how it should look. I mean, I don't see any reason why anything should be east on 50th Avenue. There's zero industry over there, right? And then you go around, like by the south side of the golf course, and like there's no need for them to come through town. Take that extra 5 minutes and go around. Yeah.
Even if it's not. But again, that's very.
Yeah, I'm in favor of this with that strip on the top northeast corner there.
Amila?
Yeah, I guess Rick kind of asked my question. So if there's a delivery for a town address, they are allowed to come.
Yeah, so again,
Right.
so if this was what we went with, for example, if someone needed a brick delivery here, for example, right? Well, how are you supposed to get out your bed? You can still do that delivery, most direct route, off of the truck route kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's still allowing for the deliveries to happen where needed kind of thing. But it's eliminating, I'm just driving through town, so I'm gonna drive down here just because today kind of thing, right? So.
Do we know we have a lot of through traffic, just like you're saying, just they're passing by Drayton Valley? We don't know that, right? Okay. Yeah, I kind of like this one too, if that's the case. But without knowing what percentage of through traffic is there, what percentage actually delivering to town, it's hard to determine what's best, because if 80% of the trucks come into town anyways, then having that is not gonna make much of a difference, right?
So I think, Madam Chair, through the chair to all members of committee, is that I think the plan is to give first reading to the bylaw, and that'll give us the opportunity to share what's proposed. Council will be able to judge from feedback if there's a lot of adverse reaction to the proposal. When it goes to second reading, council can adjust it, but we can go forward in that basis.
All right. So are we all kind of leaning to Colin's comment about, oh, Rick, did you have something?
So are we proposing this one then as opposed to just keeping 50th or?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I like this one because it also gives the truck drivers access to the large parking lot on the south end of town and the food establishments down that way that they can park still, take advantage of those, but yet save our downtown from a bit of a beating, I think, at times.
All right.
Okay.
Oh,
Thank
Amila, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm just probably gonna contradict to what I said before, but so probably, like you said, we will have that first reading and then we'll probably have a public consultation there, right? Because I was thinking if I'm a downtown restaurant, and would that be an impact as well, right? So,
And that's kind of what I talked about at the start there, like, there is those potential impacts, right? We don't know those numbers on, is it one person a day or 100 people a day?
right.
So is that huge impacts, small impacts? But again, tying it in as well on the impacts on the infrastructure, that's right? So it's a bit of a juggle on that one, but.
Right.
I don't think we're hammering downtown staff by keeping 52. If you've got a small fandom or cube van or whatever, then they would maybe have the opportunity to where the last delivery was and go get. Having to drive all the way down the south side, but it's those big tractor trailers that we're trying to keep under there that heavy weight. I don't think that a lot of that finding a place place to park. Walk to the restaurant. I don't think a lot of park.
Right, yeah. Yeah, no, I understand that. That's probably what we need to ask from them because they would know those numbers. I know, when we ran a restaurant a few years back, there were some truckers coming downtown, right? So it was close to the downtown. We ran the restaurant and. there
But they
was
can
some-
deliver still.
I'm sorry?
They can deliver. Big truckers can still deliver in
Right,
downtown. They just
But-
can't park, get out and go eat and explore and go shopping.
that's what I'm trying to say, what kind of impact for the businesses, right? If
Yeah.
that's the case. So that's what we need, I don't know. We don't have the numbers. Maybe we need to do that public consultation piece and, same as what we did with the, EPAC or the other decisions that we had, right? So, and then we can probably have a more informed decision there. That's all I'm saying. So, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
So that's all the questions that I had. Now, can throw back out to council if there's any additional discussions or questions that they have regarding traffic bylaw related stuff. Do you have any questions, I guess?
Anyone?
Just in time to, sorry. Just in terms of the time frame now, we're gonna go back, incorporate all of this input for council, and we'll be bringing a bylaw forward to council, the first meeting in May for first reading?
I'd suggest that's too soon.
You do? Okay, so, yeah, give me a time frame then, that you're
I'm thinking
anticipating.
more of a July.
Why so long?
I got a million other things on the go.
Okay,
This project's been about 3 years to get to this point here, so.
okay.
So there is a motion. Anyone like to make the motion? Colin? Perfect. It's just accepting for information. Oh, there, Nancy has one more question.
Just one more question, just trying to remember. Last week's meeting, we discussed the Ring Road speed limit.
Yeah.
Will it be in here as well, reflected?
If it gets passed, then that would be kind of part of the essentially repealing bylaws. Because the new bylaw would incorporate all the speed bylaws into one kind of thing. So if the bylaw is passed, then when the speed bylaw gets passed, then when we get to the actual new traffic safety bylaw, that would be part of the kind of repealing bylaws in essence. Because the speed limits would be established under the new proposed bylaw. So it's a
So
little
it's like a
bit,
schedule, kind of?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Okay, thanks.
Go ahead.
Are we just dealing with, sort of the roadway bylaws here? Are we talking about snow removal, sidewalks, et cetera?
sidewalks is dealt with under the community standards bylaw. So that would be outside of this scope, yeah.
Okay.
If I may.
Go ahead.
So we passed the motion for the 80 speed limit on the ring road, right? So
Yeah.
are we waiting for this,
No.
that to happen or
No.
we already, okay.
We're just waiting, for, we're coming forward, I think, Shelley, next week. Next, meeting, on, April 23rd, next Wednesday for second, third reading to the speed limit bylaw.
All right.
So we have
Would you like to
motion,
make a
Matthew, up there on the screen?
So I do have a question about the motion though. So right now it says we're gonna accept this as information. But do we want to give direction to begin preparing the new traffic bylaw or is that?
Yes.
Okay. So I will move that council accepts the traffic bylaw survey results as information as outlined in RTC 25075 and directs administration to prepare the new traffic bylaw.
Great, thank you.
All right. Any comments or questions on the motion? None? All in favor? Perfect. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I just want to point out one thing. As it said in the report, public engagement is so important. So if you just think back to your sustainability pillar, number 1, social and culture, and council's tactic, make public engagement resonate with residents, you've achieved that. through this particular process without a doubt, 615 respondents. I hope we continue to enjoy that kind of success with all other future public engagement. Just make sure it's controversial. You get great response.
That's the key.
Oh, right on.
You still find out next week? Yeah. I think you did. All right, let's move on to 3.2, that's curfew bylaw, smoking bylaw, and cannabis-free public places bylaw discussion.
So similar to the last presentation, the continuous review of municipal bylaws is integral for the good governance and meets the needs of the community. So back a couple months ago at the Community Safety Committee, there was a number of bylaws that were brought forward for discussion on is this something that the community wants? Is it something that the community needs, et cetera. So that being said, here to talk about 3 different bylaws today. The first one is curfew bylaw. Second one is the smoking bylaw, and the third one is cannabis-free public places bylaw. So these bylaws have been in place, I think, dating back from 2002 till 2018, they were enacted. So like to have a quick discussion with them, and then going to seek council to kind of provide some feedback and consider the presentation. And after you make some inquiries with administration, I'd be seeking guidance on if this is something, these bylaws would be something that council wants to keep, if it's something that they want to amend or totally get rid of. And if with that caveat is, if there is anything in there that we'd like to keep, I would suggest moving forward with in the next amendments to the community standards bylaw. All of these type of things could easily fall into the community standards bylaw. So we'd kind of keep them on record until a new amendment comes forward. And then part of a new community standards bylaw amendment would be part of repealing these bylaws as well. So when we jump into it, the first one is curfew bylaw. 2001-14P. So this was enacted in 2002. It's a total of 3 pages long. The intent of the bylaw is to regulate the time in which a child is considered to be under the age of 16, is allowed to kind of be in a public place at night without guardianship. So those curfew times are 11 p.m. till 6 a.m. And it does allow for a fine for either the child or the parent or guardian with first offense of $50. Curfew bylaws were quite common in smaller municipalities kind of in the late 90s, early 2000s. However, kind of as we move forward into the 2025 realm, they're a lot harder to find. The ones that do have them don't seem to really, they're just there, they're on the books, they're not really getting used. And there are some potential challenges with enforcement of it when it comes to charter violations. With that, with discussions with the RCMP and through looking at our enforcement services records, we've had no record of using this bylaw in the last several years. So that'd be the first one that we'd be kind of looking to, my suggestion would be just a full kind of repeal. The next one would be the smoking bylaw, 2003-18P. So that one was enacted January 7th, 2004. It's a total of 7 pages long. So the intent of this is to regulate smoking in the community, ensure that people can breathe fresh air. All contents of the bylaw are currently regulated under the Provincial Tobacco Smoking and Vaping Reduction Act, which deals with smoking and vaping in public areas, workplaces, schools, and minors, selling to minors, selling the products, etc. So again, it's already covered in a provincial statute, all of this kind of stuff that's in there. So similarly, my recommendation on that one would be to just repeal the smoking bylaw and just follow the provincial legislation on that one. And then the last one for discussion is the cannabis-free public places bylaw. So this was enacted October 17th, 2018, and is a total of 7 pages long. So the intent of this bylaw is to impose restrictions on smoking, vaping, and other forms of consumption of cannabis in public places. So back in 2018, when the federal government was legalizing cannabis throughout the country, municipalities in Alberta and across Canada kind of started, what is this going to look like? What are we doing? And a lot of municipalities started imposing bylaws to kind of in anticipation of what this is going to look like. So with our current cannabis-free public places bylaw, there's two things you can't do. One is you can't consume cannabis in a public area. Or if you are consuming it and you have a medical license, you are required to provide that medical license as that exemption. So those are the kind of two caveats in that one. Again, in review with the RCMP as well as our documentation, we've had one file on this in the last couple of years. And it was more so related to someone just consuming cannabis on their balcony at an apartment building. So it didn't even fall into this. So my recommendation on this one is whether the law is in place or not, from my view, we don't have a bunch of people walking down the street smoking cannabis causing issues. It was kind of, if we go back to that 2017, 2018 timeline, there was a lot of fear on what's going to happen, I guess. But for the most part, all of that fear, in my view, hasn't been substantiated kind of thing. So my recommendation on that one would similarly be to repeal it. But if that is something that that council would like to kind of continue to have on the books, again, that'd be something that we could easily incorporate from 7 pages long of a bylaw into about a 3-liner of the community standards bylaw. So looking for any feedback, comments, or questions from council on these 3 bylaws.
Okay. Rick, want to go ahead first?
So you can smoke cannabis in a public place with a medical license.
Yes.
Now, is that the same as a prescription? Because you need a license to grow for personal use, but you only need a prescription for medical use.
I believe so.
I'm just looking at the wording here, that's all.
Yeah, I believe so. I'd have to.
I think a
double check, but
prescription is
sufficient.
more apt description of what would be required.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that, though. I didn't realize you could in a public place with a prescription. I gave up my prescription.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Curfew bylaw, let's bring back the siren that goes off at 9 PM that. Yeah, let's go old school. Let's take it back old school, right? 10 o'clock, the siren goes off and all kids have to be in their homes or the police are coming. So when we look at these 3, curfew, smoking, cannabis, what are other municipalities and communities doing? What are, I guess, the police and bylaw and enforcement and thinking about these?
Yeah, so again, other municipalities, so on the curfew side, it's hard to find the curfew bylaws anymore. And again, the ones that do have them, they're not using them. They're kind of, they've been on the books. I came across this looking for other bylaws and they weren't on the website and I didn't even know they existed. And then all of a sudden, what are these? So they weren't forward facing to begin with. Discussions with the RCMP there, again, not something that they've wanted to use. They didn't even know about it, but it's not something where they were wishing they had such a thing in the last number of years. When we get into the smoking bylaw, I'd say it's a bit of a mix on municipalities. Some still have it, but their bylaws in place. But is it because they just haven't brought it forward to have the discussion on? And it's just kind of sitting there. So again, some have it, some don't. Again, my recommendation, we've got provincial legislation that covers all of it anyways. From an enforcement standpoint, if we're looking at either dealing with an issue that's covered under our municipal bylaw or provincial statute, we're going under the provincial statute anyways. So in essence, in my view, it's taking up space on the books. So I would, again, recommend getting rid of the smoking bylaw. And then the cannabis free public places. When it was enacted, I haven't heard of anyone that's kind of brought their bylaws back. They were kind of enacted. But speaking with kind of my counterparts in other municipalities, same thing. It's not something that, it's not the issue that it was kind of, people thought it was going to be when it was being legalized. There's different restrictions in other municipalities. Some allow it, some allow it, just not in parks, for example. Ours is restrictive that just in any public place you can't do it, right? So there's kind of your 3 different options, I guess, that you have with how regulated you want to go with it.
Is there anything in the provincial smoking or cannabis bylaw that we would maybe disagree with or wouldn't fit into our municipality? Like anything in provincially that, we wish that we had
Any
included?
like additional things?
Yeah, like just saying if we rescind these and go with the provincial legislation on both of these, is there something that when it comes to, you know, you're having to administer a fine or a ticket or work within that, is there anything that could kind of strap us to say, well, you don't have this municipally covered, right? It's missing. Is there something
Yeah,
missing
the
provincially?
provincial statute has more than our bylaws even.
Oh, okay.
So they have more
Teeth, kind of?
teeth, more options kind of
Okay.
thing. So yeah, from that smoking bylaw perspective, I personally don't see value in keeping it in, because we do have that provincial legislation. From the cannabis aspect though, there is no provincial legislation that deals with the consumption in a public place. It deals with consuming in a vehicle, driving after consuming, all that kind of stuff. That's dealt with through legislation, but the actual like walking down the sidewalk, consuming, whether that's smoking, whether that's edibles, anything like that, that's not regulated anywhere. So again, it'd be one of those things on, do we want to continue with it in Drayton Valley? My recommendation is if council is wanting to keep that, again, that's something that we can include into the community standards bylaw, in whole or in part. And then again, that'd be one of those things where maybe this discussion is another 5 years on, we went another 5 years and there's still no issues. Do we need it at all? Or maybe it's working so good that nobody's going down, walking down the road, right? Either way, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mila, go ahead.
Thank you. For the first one, for the curfew, as a family that's going to have 2 teenagers in few years, I was thinking maybe that's a great bylaw to keep. Just at the silence, exactly, right? If they're out and about at midnight, and we'll get to know, and
Yeah.
see if
Well,
we will drop them off, right? So-
My opinion on that one is that do we need police to enforce that, or do we need parents to parent? Is really what it comes down to in my view, right? So. Not
Right.
yet.
Exactly.
But keeping in mind, part of that is there's twofold. The officer would have the ability to either issue the ticket to the child. If they're under the age of 12, they can't get a ticket anyways. So now the officer's showing up at your house giving you a ticket because you let your kid out, right? So again, that ties back into parents need to parent, ultimately, because that fine is coming back to you, could come back to you, not so much the 14-year-old, right? There's those options on where the officer wants to go. So I'm open.
See, about the smoking bylaw, I was, again,
Madam Chair, I think we should get a app designed that we can give to every parent to put on their child's phone that sounds like a siren and goes off automatically at 10
Right.
o'clock at night.
Time to go home? Yeah.
that's a great idea. So about the smoking bylaw, I was just wondering, I remember going through that bylaw when the cannabis was legalized and all that, and you're right, there were some concerns how it's going to pan out, right? So maybe we have more than what we need, but my struggle is it that because we have the bylaw and we don't have these problems, or if we remove the bylaw, would things change, or what's other municipalities do, right?
Yeah, again, there's a mix of other municipalities on what they're allowing, not allowing, right? I'd suspect this bylaw isn't preventing the people that want to walk down the street from consuming cannabis. I don't think they're looking for this bylaw and saying, Drayton Valley, I can't smoke my cannabis as I'm walking down the street. So I don't think it's really serving its purpose. I could be totally wrong though. But again, it's a bylaw, so it's something that council wants to put in or not. And like I said, it'd be one of those things where if we are looking to keep it, I'd suggest putting in to the CSB. So we're getting rid of a 7-page bylaw into 3 lines.
Right, and having that there, if you're not enforcing or anything, if there's no issue, there's no problem there too, right?
It's still there at that point if needed.
So, okay, sounds good. Thank you.
All right.
So knowing that, are we able to, I think I know where we're going, but can we get a general consensus on the curfew? Keep or get rid of?
No, get rid of it. Lose it. I leave parenting to parents. That's parents' job to parent their kids.
not the sixties anymore. It's just getting better. Parents are so careful. But I think they are.
Okay, administration is proposing that we will bring forward a bylaw to repeal the curfew bylaw, the smoking bylaw, and the cannabis-free public places bylaw.
No, have praise in every office.
All right, do you need somebody to make that motion then? To
Yes.
repeat it as a motion? Anyone? Colin? All right. Rick? Please.
So if we, Madam Chair, might have a motion from council directing administration to prepare a bylaw to resend, to repeal those three bylaws, that'll give us a direction to move forward in the matter.
Anyone who need to make a motion? Not all at once, just, okay, thanks, Colin.
I will move that council accept the curfew bylaw, smoking bylaw, and cannabis-free public places bylaw discussion report as information as outlined in RTC 25077 and draft a bylaw to repeal the three discussed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on the motion? Oh, Nancy, go ahead.
Just wondering if there's anything that needs to be in the motion saying that, that two of the bylaws will revert to provincial. You don't need that? And the only reason I'm saying that is to go on Amila's comment of, then all of a sudden does the public think that, oh, we can smoke and we can vape and smoke pot everywhere? Like, why are we rescinding it, right? We're still following provincial guidelines or?
So, Madam Chair, through the chair to Mayor Dodds, when it comes up for first reading normally is the introduction of it, and then at second reading is a debate on the bylaw. That would be part of the conversation and the rationale at that particular time.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on the motion? No, all in favor? Excellent. Thank you. So next we have we have 3.3, asset management policy, TF 0225, and Shelley will be presenting now. Hi.
Yeah. All right, good morning, council and or deputy mayor and members of council.
Michelle?
As part of the 2025 strategic priorities, council has identified that the town's asset management program as a medium priority initiative. In response, we have undertaken a review of our current asset management policy and determined that an update is necessary to align with best practices and the town's evolving needs. The town of Drayton Valley delivers a wide range of essential services to the community, all of which rely on the responsible ownership, operation, maintenance, and renewal of physical and natural assets. These assets include land, buildings, equipment, and critical infrastructure such as water, sewer, and drainage systems. Sorry. Asset management is a coordinated, organization-wide approach that involves all town departments. It is aimed to deliver a value to the community by effectively managing both existing and new infrastructure assets throughout their life cycle. This policy reaffirms the town's commitment to long-term planning through the implementation of sound asset management practices and a comprehensive asset management program by maximizing the benefits of our infrastructure, minimizing risk, and ensuring satisfactory levels of service. We aim to support the development of a sustainable and resilient community. The guiding principles set out in the policy will inform planning and decision-making for all services and infrastructure moving forward. Adopting the updated asset management policy will strengthen the town's ability to deliver high-quality, cost-effective services while maintaining our infrastructure responsibly. It is a key step in supporting Drayton Valley's long-term growth, resilience, and sustainability. So we brought this forward so that you guys could review before we bring it back to council, to regular council, and I'll open it up for any questions.
All right, do we have any questions from council or administration? Rick, go ahead.
Just a just a quick comment. I'm fine with the policy in general, but D on the first page under strategic alignment aerial structure plan, I think that's probably should be area structure plan. That's all.
That's correct, yeah.
Just nitpicking here, that's all.
No, thank you.
Thank
I
you.
think Deputy Mayor, I owe Councillor Evans a loony today. I think I made that offer originally. If he found a mistake in a report, I'd pay the council member a loony.
Nice.
So I read something yesterday that you read before and there was a mistake in it, so you didn't catch it. Do I get $1? There's a spelling error.
Only if it's coming before council or committee.
And so it begins. Right?
I have to share that story with you. So a number of years ago, when I first started at the CEO, we used to put agenda package in brown envelopes and tape them. And council members would come in 5 minutes before council meeting and be ripping open their envelopes. And you'd know they hadn't read any of their material. So that was very annoying and frustrating for administration because there'd be a number of questions that come up. I'd be thinking to myself, you silly ass, you wouldn't ask these questions if you had read the report. You're taking up some valuable council times. So once they got into the habit of reading it, to check in fact that they were reading, I would deliberately put something into a report. And if a council member read it, and it might be a phrase that says, you collect a loony if you read this far in the report. And so that got everybody reading the reports and searching to see if they get a loony.
Nice.
And I've done that with a number of councils since that particular time. So that's the reference here.
Break out a loony.
Why do I think that we did? When we first got into council, that we got them in a brown envelope, the agendas.
See, yeah.
Yeah. Rick is reading through the whole.
Yeah, make sure you include that as income on your income tax return, please, sir.
I'll make sure to do that. So, under responsibilities, A, section 2, is this the new one or the old one that I'm on now? I think this is the new one. Asset management policy. Is anything wrong with that? Asset should be a capital M there, management policy.
Oh, he's on a roll now.
Is it? Did I make $2 today? Or is that not a good enough? Am I
Madam
nitpicking
Chair,
too much?
I apologize for opening up the Pandora's box on this
Your money, Pat.
and creating a monster.
It's your money. You offered it. All right. Nothing else? Anyone would like to make a motion? All right.
Okay, you ready?
Yes.
I'll make the motion that council accepts the asset management policy TF-02-25 as presented in RTC-25-091.
Thank you. Rick, any comments or questions on your motion?
Madam Chair, this will be coming forward on the May 7th regular meeting of council agenda for formal adoption.
Right. Thank you. No questions? All in favor? All right. So next we have 3.4, which is Emergency Management Bylaw 2025-05P. Cody again?
Bylaws are the theme of the day, I think.
See that?
So here to talk about a proposed emergency management bylaw 2025-05P. So under the Emergency Management Act and the Local Authorities Emergency Management Regulation, it provides direction on municipal emergency management roles and responsibilities and includes requirements for municipalities to plan for community-wide emergencies and disasters before they occur. Administration has completed a review of the Town of Drayton Valley Emergency Management Advisory Committee and Agency Bylaw 2019-16P and previous emergency management bylaws that are still in effect for the municipality, and in collaboration with the Alberta Emergency Management Agency, have identified areas for improvement in the bylaw and areas to bring forward to get the bylaw in compliance with the local authority emergency management regulation. So the proposed bylaw that's attached to the agenda will bring the town into compliance with provincial legislation and ensure that the bylaw is effective and efficient as possible while removing old unnecessary bylaws. So a high-level overview of the proposed changes include clarifying who is involved in the Emergency Management Committee and the Emergency Management Agency, removing unnecessary definitions or terminology, and amending others to ensure uniformity with the provincial legislation plans, remove reference to emergency management partnerships that are no longer in effect, provides better layout of the bylaw and removes unnecessary procedure that is already outlined in provincial legislation, references the Act, which is the Emergency Management Act, and to follow all items outlined in the Act instead of laying it out in the bylaw to prevent the need for continuous updates to the bylaw if there are any changes to the provincial legislation, which I think there was just some changes that were tabled the other day in chambers there. To appoint the CAO as the Director of Emergency Management, however, allows for the further delegation of the role by the CAO if required, adds offenses for not complying with evacuation orders, and rescinds 4 Town of Drayton Valley bylaws that are currently regulating emergency management. So we actually have 4 bylaws that are actively on the books in place for the Town of Drayton Valley that regulate emergency management in the community. So our kind of next steps from here is to have the discussion with council after reviewing the bylaw. And should there be any changes requested, amendments would be made, and then the bylaw would be brought forward to council for first and subsequent readings. If after the appropriate readings have went through and the bylaw is passed, administration will notify the Alberta Emergency Management Agency of the new bylaw and update our emergency management plan to reflect the current legislation. And I just received a final update yesterday. Our field officers with the Alberta Emergency Management Agency have done their final review of the proposed draft bylaw, and they have no suggested changes in there either. So, so that would mean our bylaw would be in compliant with the legislation. So that said, the bylaw is attached for any comment, question.
Do we have any comments or questions? Mayor Dodds? Your microphone.
So today we would be accepting the emergency management bylaw as information. That's what the intent of today is. And then once this, the bylaw is accepted as information, when would things like the Emergency Management Committee and agency start or commence?
Yeah, so technically there is already one that's in place from our current existing bylaws. So if we go back to 2-ish months ago, we had a committee meeting with all members of council in there. So that bylaw is still in effect.
It's still, okay.
Yeah, so what I would suggest though is, as this bylaw is already essentially written, as long as there's no further amendments or changes needed, all I pretty much need to do is take the draft watermark out and it could essentially be transferred onto an actual council agenda. So for me, this one's pretty quick to move forward. Again, as long as there's no amendments or changes that are required. So
there's no changes to the committee or the agency or anything like that then?
So this bylaw clarifies it. So under the existing bylaw, the committee is essentially appointed by council, however you guys want to do that. Where this proposed bylaw just makes council as a committee with the CAO and with the Director of Emergency Management. So it takes out having to appoint different people. So to me, that clarifies that one. And then on the agency standpoint from our most recent current bylaw, I guess, it talks about, it has a big list of different positions in the organization, but it's like superintendent of public works. We don't have those positions in the organization anymore. So we've streamlined to get rid of actual titles in the bylaw and just move it to the Director of Emergency Management, and invite members of the town to be part of the agency, as well as members of external agencies. So again, that's just something that through the DEM makes that determination. And then whether that's guided through policies, procedures, stuff like that internally at that point to be determined, but kind of takes out, oh, we changed the job title, now we got to go amend a bylaw, stuff like that, so.
And is the Emergency Advisory Committee the same as the Emergency Management Committee?
Let's see.
Because I'm just looking at the Municipal Emergency Plan, Management Plan.
Yeah.
And so when you look at like the responsibilities for agency executives.
Yeah.
In there, it mentions the Emergency Advisory Committee. So is that the same as the Emergency Management Committee?
Would be, so we would just have to.
We'd have to change
Pick one of the words
either
that we
or,
want.
okay.
Yeah.
And then also, okay, yeah, that's it.
When the MEP was created, it's working off of the current bylaw that's in place, which calls it a advisory committee.
Okay, so we'll change it in the plan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The agency's different.
That's different, that's why I was
Yeah, so there's an emergency management committee, which is gonna be comprised, if the bylaw passes, of all members, council, CAO and DEM. And then the agency deals with like your day-to-day stuff. So like that's your DEM, your fire chief, RCMP, all of that kind of stuff, and preparing the plans to get it up for the committee's approval, review, stuff like that, so.
Yeah, the committee is where your funding and plans would be approved per se. It doesn't, sorry, am I interrupting? But it doesn't necessarily need to be all of council, is that right? Or is it the agency that doesn't necessarily need to be all of council?
So to clarify, if you go to page 2, item 3, so the Emergency Management Committee is council. Now, council has the option, I would strongly advise all members of council sit on the committee because of the importance of it. If you go to page 3 of the bylaw, section 12, it describes the Emergency Management Agency, and the agency is the CEO, the Director, Administrative Head. So this is the administrative component separated from the committee as the policy component.
And I guess all that I'm getting at is at some point in time, there may be a member of council who's unable to give the time required to sit on that committee. So I'm just asking if, because it's not council, it doesn't need to be council as a whole. I don't know, do we want to tweak that just a little bit?
We do have section
Yeah,
8.
and it can even be like 3 members of council, right?
Yeah, so section 8 talks about the quorum of the committee is 3 members. So.
Okay, so
Council is a member of it, but quorum is 3.
So I guess we could leave it as long as you have 3. I just remember when I was dealing with that, I gave council the option, it can just be a couple of members of council as that committee, if they don't want to all commit the time to it, or it can be council as a whole. Generally, it is. I'm not arguing with that necessarily, just wondering if this wording kind of will put us in a bit of a corner. That's all, or if we want to leave a little bit of flexibility there. Again, I'm not necessarily saying it should happen, just worth looking at that it doesn't need to necessarily be the entirety of council. So maybe you want to put quorum in there or something. Yeah, okay.
Right. Anyone?
Do have one more question where, so with these, you've got the Emergency Management Committee and the Drayton Valley Emergency Management Agency. The Drayton Valley Emergency Management Agency would be giving updates to the
committee.
committee. Okay.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
And that would be my responsibility as the chief administrative officer to present those reports to the committee. And as it says in the bylaw, the committee shall meet at least once annually. And that the purpose of that is to remain familiar with the emergency management plan and check with the agency, with staff, that we've done our due diligence in doing the review, and if there's any updates that need to be done to the plan.
All right, Mila, would you like to make a motion or you have questions?
I have a question and then
Okay.
probably I'll make the motion as well. So about the quorum, I was just wondering why only 3 members?
Through the Madam Chair to Councilor Yamana, it's covered under the Emergency Management Act that in order for a state of local emergency to be called, it'd be the mayor and a councillor, 2 members of council. So at minimum, you should have 3 members of council in that. It's trying to address a very specific situation, as Councillor Evans said. If we had an emergency here and it's the middle of July, 4 members of council or 3 members of council are away on holidays, how do you deal with that situation? It should be at least the minimum of the 3 members of council to deal with the situation. Under normal circumstances for a committee meeting, you would need 4 members.
That's what I was wondering, right?
The
So-
7 members of council to be present.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so in this case, you
Yeah.
can have less than a quorum to, okay.
Yeah. In fact, if the mayor and no members of council were available, I, as a CEO, would declare the state of local emergency. And then, as soon as I could get a hold of the mayor and 2 members of council, have them sanction the actions I had taken. So,
Right,
the extreme conditions.
okay.
You do what is necessary to protect life and property.
Can I make the motion or do you have,
Yeah, please, sir.
you have a question? Oh, sure, yeah.
So in the legislation, and I'm just kind of throwing this out there, whether it needs to be in this or because it's in the legislation, is council or the management committee, they have a responsibility to fund the agency at sufficient levels, correct?
Yes.
Is it worth noting that in this bylaw, or is it enough that it's in the legislation? And the reason I ask is it's just something that I don't know if councils are that aware of, that the legislation does specifically state that you need to fund it at sufficient levels to be effective. It's just a little kind of nudge to council that you do have a responsibility to make the agency function well with sufficient funds as required.
Yeah, I don't think that's something that would cause any harm. That would probably clarify a little bit easier for council when they're looking at their emergency management committee responsibilities kind of things. That'd be something that I think would be a good amendment, not something that's required, but one of those, like you
Yeah,
said,
and-
a little nudge.
And I'm not insisting on it at all. I just probably, members of council haven't read the full legislation that's out there unless they want some good reading material before bed. But it is pretty specific. Now, and it's not that the province really pursues that if things don't work out the way they should due to lack of support and funding for the agency. I just know that it can be overlooked a little bit, or looked at a place to maybe save a little money, and that can put us in a unfavorable position, if you will.
Madam Chair, through the chair to Councillor Evans and to all members of council, I think it would be redundant because it's already covered in legislation. I understand the purpose of doing that. I would suggest that given the experience that the town of Drayton Valley had very recently, that would never be a problem with this or future councils, making sure that the agency was properly funded. Perhaps 15, 20 years from now, its memory fails, then maybe it's a good time to revisit that. But I'm thinking is that it would be something that we would revisit on an annual basis as a reminder to the committee in their annual committee meeting, not only review the plan, but all of the obligations they have as a committee as set out in legislation. which is ensuring adequate funding. And I know myself and the administration would be doing that annually through the budget process as well.
Fair enough. Yeah, you pull the highlights out of the legislation at those meetings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't object to that at all. Just wanted to.
Awesome. Thank you.
And I'd just like to put in that final reminder, if we are bringing this bylaw forward, part of the amendments is to actually be repealing 4 bylaws. So just make sure that's a reminder so that when we do get to actual council, it's not a surprise. Why is this repealing 4 bylaws? We go back to, I think, 1998 was the oldest one. They're just proper repealing just hasn't occurred over the years. So again, just don't want that to be a surprise at council meetings.
Excellent. Amelia, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna make a motion.
Yeah.
if That's
no, go
okay.
ahead,
Yep, thank you. I would like to make a motion that council accepts the emergency management bylaw 2025-05-P report as information as presented in RTC 25090. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, just through the chair to all council, we're planning to have this on next Wednesday's council agenda for presentation for 3 readings.
Perfect, thank you. Go ahead, Colin.
Pat, just a question. I wasn't here for most of the discussion here. Am I still able to vote on this? Yes. Okay.
Unlike a public hearing where you probably would be excused, this is just debate in committee.
Right, any other comments, questions? No, all in favor? Great, thank you. So moving to council items, anyone wants to talk about any upcoming conferences, meetings? Anything coming up that you'd like to share?
Madam Chair, I got a list of things to add to draw to your attention. Things are happening. So on next Tuesday, 22nd, we have the Poverty Reduction Team meeting. Not sure, I think, who sits on that particular committee, but I think it should be noted. On next,
Poverty. Oh, yeah, okay.
So what is the date and time?
it's next Tuesday. I believe it's at 9 a.m. I'm sorry. The Poverty Reduction Team meeting.
Who's leading that?
HCC. They're trying to bring it, a couple years ago, Councillor Clark organized a meeting where the Warming Hearts, Shelter Pods, we were trying to get everybody to kind of communicate and see who's working on what. So Jessica and the team from HCC is trying to do that again.
Yep.
Some community members just don't want to participate, but it's been all right. I think we've had 2 meetings so far. Sorry? Yep.
The next one, Madam Chair, is next Wednesday, 23rd, the Rural Alberta Workforce Development. I'm not sure who sits on that, but I've got it noted in my daytime. I had an email on that.
Who's hosting that?
Wealth creation? No? Oh,
Which day?
I'm sorry,
Which day that time?
time is?
It's 2 to 3 p.m. on the 23rd.
It's in the afternoon following regular meeting of council.
It's at the Civic Center here. It's a meeting with Paul Bomer.
Oh, so that is, I think that's Pat, myself, and Jocelyn, is it not?
It would be Pat, yourself, Ruby, I believe.
The invitation came to Bart and was addressed for Bart, myself, Pat, and Ruby. I remember that now. It came through as an email, and then I had forwarded it to Jocelyn because she had just came on board, so I don't think there was any detail. It was just a request to, I think, get more information.
Okay, just make sure all the council's aware of what, everything that's going on. On the 24th, we have council supper at 6 p.m. And at 7 p.m., we have the Drayton Valley 35th Festival Showcase Concert at the EPAF.
Just to add on to that, Pat, I was going to talk to council about it a little bit more over lunch. We probably won't show up till about 8, if a couple can come. They're celebrating 35 years.
Yeah. And just for council's information, in recognition of that event, the administration is going to arrange to have a plaque that council can present to them to mark their 35th anniversary.
It's already.
We did.
The 24th?
24th, yeah, that's, yeah. The 25th, we have a charity classic golf tournament organizing committee meeting at 9 a.m., I believe. Is that correct, Aaron?
It's at 11 a.m.
11 a.m., I'm sorry. And on the Monday, the 28th, at 1:30, there's a meeting with St. Mary's University to discuss expansion of their Bachelor of Education program to the CETC. And all of council is invited. We have the president, vice president, and the dean of education coming to our community. Yes, that's correct. So the month of May, I got a few things to add for your attention. So on May 7th, following the regular meeting of council, will be the CEO council briefing. Go back to May 1st, we have the TLA Developments Workshop. I believe it's at 1 o'clock, Aaron? Yeah. I think it's in, yeah. On Thursday, May 8th is McHappy Day. There was an email yesterday to members of council if they wished to participate in that. May 9th is the 2025 Diversity Awards in Sylvan Lake, and we're just checking to see if the people that we've nominated, we had 3 nominations go in for this. I had asked Aaron yesterday to follow up and see if we get confirmation if any of these nominees have been selected for an award. May 12th, from 5 to 8 p.m. in Edmonton, will be the joint Brazeau County, Town of Drayton Valley Government Members Reception. And I don't know if we've sent out a invitation yet, but if it hasn't gone out, it will be going out, but just to make a note of it. Tuesday, the 13th is a joint recreation board meeting. You did? He's going to be welcome with open arms. Yeah, no. And on the, which one? No, just, yeah. Yeah, but I'm just putting into the calendar so council aware, you know, how busy members of council are, and as a good communication piece to the community. On the 15th of May, tentative Brazeau Foundation meeting.
Who's that?
I think Councillor McGee is on the foundation, is he not?
The Seniors Foundation?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And finally, on the 22nd, I have it noted that the Drayton Valley Community Foundation is having their meeting.
All right.
That's it from me, Chair.
Anything else? Anyone? Mayor Dodds?
I did see in our calendars, there is an Indigenous Youth Conference invitation.
Yeah,
We have a council meeting that day, I believe.
yeah.
Does anyone know any information about that or was attending that day? No?
It's being held at the Mackenzie Conference Center. It starts at, I believe, 8 o'clock in the morning, and it's going to go for the full day.
Okay,
There's an invitation, and certainly, if members of council are available to drop in and introduce themselves, I know the organizers would be very pleased for that.
okay. On April 28th, National Day of Mourning at, is it 11 a.m.?
That's
Oh,
correct?
10:45 here at the Civic Center. Does everyone have that in their calendars? Yes, April 28th, 10:45 a.m. And
Yeah.
then as well, that day is the mural project unveiling at 1 o'clock. Yep, everyone has that.
Yeah.
And then just a question, I'm just gonna check here. Tomorrow, we have a save the date. Do we have an address and all of that information for council? And who's going to be joining us from administration, or is anyone? That's the tour of the Real-Time Operations Center.
I just forgot to remove the save the date words, but the address is.
Mhm.
Okay, and it's still 1 o'clock, everything is still confirmed? Okay, perfect.
Absolutely. And, I don't believe anyone from administration is going with me.
Okay, is Ryan or anyone from our local detachment attending?
Yes.
Perfect, okay, wonderful. And then we have the Dirt to Door breakfast. And then also, we have a council meeting on, I'm just gonna go forward here, May 21st.
Yep.
And there is the potential for 3 councilors to be away. Could we move that council meeting to the 22nd?
No.
We
No,
can't.
just kidding. I gotta surprise people every once in a while. Yes, we can.
Okay, that gives us enough time?
Okay, so I'll need, for the May 7th regular meeting of council, an RFD to change the date.
So we can bring it to next week's?
Yeah. Can we get it prepared on next week's calendar? Okay, it'll be on the agenda for next Wednesday.
Okay, and then that works, everyone will be back by then?
Mhm. Should be,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, well, I'll be back, I'll come the Wednesday at least, and then if that gives us quorum there, then. And then we have FCM coming up, we have a couple from administration going.
Yes, we do.
I'm still waiting on, figure that out by the end of the week. Anyone else? There's usually one for the deputy and the mayor. FCM, yeah. In Ottawa, yeah. Mm-hmm. What's just, oh, the Globe, yeah, me too.
What is, FCM is the 26th?
No, the 28th, yeah.
Well,
20.
while you're in Ottawa, maybe you get to meet new Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre.
I met him last time
No, I said new Prime Minister.
Well, we gave him the,
27, 28,
you got this. See you next time when you're,
Thanks. Only I was paying.
okay, that's it, I think, for upcoming meetings or conferences. Anyone else have that? I do have.
Okay, thank you very much for your attention.
Just adding stuff to my calendar. Mm. And it would help if I was in the right month. Um, All right. Sorry about that. I was just checking my calendar too. So roundtable discussion, has anything interesting? No, go ahead.
Thank you. I was wondering, there's an email, I guess Pat sent all of us about that diversity award. I was wondering if we can discuss about submitting nominations for that from the community.
Is that the impact awards though?
That's the thing, right? Yeah.
I have someone, but I needed to ask Tom first. Maybe. I don't know when to open.
Yeah, I have a couple in my mind as well, so maybe we can discuss that in closed.
Pick a couple. Yeah.
Yep, good idea.
In the community that they'd like to also have considered. And I don't think there's any limit to the number of nominations that we can submit. But again, you want to have as good a background and nomination prepared that they get serious consideration and perhaps be, receive that recognition. So
Does it have to be somebody living in Drayton Valley, or can it be surrounding area as well?
I think council's free to nominate whoever they'd like to.
Okay.
Absolutely. If
Thank you.
somebody from the region, if it's somebody in the province that has done something significant that we want to have them recognized for, by all means, we should.
I was just wondering about, like, Dr. Murphy retired after 38 years, and he's an immigrant from Ireland, I think, right? So somebody like that.
Is there a criteria?
And yeah, there's a couple other in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no? Sure, thank you.
Awesome.
It's like, I'll keep that in mind.
Anything else for roundtable?
Anything else? No? Okay, items for future meetings? No?
Madam Chair, we're keeping things moving fairly quickly.
I can see that.
with Council administration, so we're not having to delay too many things to future meetings, so I'm quite pleased with that.
Perfect. All right, well, if that's the case, I think, are we ready to adjourn the meeting? Nothing else? All right, let's adjourn the meeting at 11:39. Thanks, everyone.